What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the RotoWire DraftKings Soccer DFS Team Preview Show. My name is Jack Burkart. You can find me on Twitter at Jack Burkart. Joined again by Ryan Belongia. And Ryan, let's just dig in and get right back at it. The next team on our list is Brighton and Hove Albion. And Ryan, there was a team that played really well in the first half and maybe struggled a bit in the second half. And then we saw their manager, who was really good, Roberto De Zerbi, leave for Marseille, which just kind of seemed like a very weird thing. I would feel that he would leave for more of a promotion. Now, I tried to learn a little bit about their new manager, Fabian Hutzler. Hopefully, I did my grandma proud with my German there. So he was the St. Pauli manager, and I think he kind of fits into Brighton's vision. Like I read about him, he wants to control possession, he wants to play attacking soccer. So Ryan, do you think that Brighton might be able to reach those new highs they have? Oh, and I left the cat out of the bag. Pascal Gross was just transferred to Borussia Dortmund, so there's going to be changes in just the nuts and bolts of the fantasy. But Ryan, how do you think Brighton might look this upcoming season?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I would imagine they're going to be worse without Pascal Gross, at least at the start. He kind of controlled everything for them, not just took most of their sets, but just sort of like controlled the way that they played too. And he was all over the pitch. They used him in different spots. Um, we all really liked De Zerbi. So you'd have to think they got worse at manager too. I don't know. Didn't know much about this manager. Didn't know much about St. Pauli. We'll have to see, but I think there could be some growing pains. Really, more so without Gross. Just when you're used to playing, he played all the time too. When you're used to one guy sort of running everything, I think it could be. It will be tough. But they still have a lot of good players, highly rated players. I mean, they're still projected to finish top 10, I believe, at least right around there. So, there's some optimism still. But yeah, I don't know much about the manager, and Gross being gone is really going to open some things up for DFS.
Yeah, right now Adam has Brighton projected to play something like a 3-4-3, like a lot of teams are doing lately. That would put Valentin Barco, who is the young signing from Boca Juniors, I think. He's a very attacking and very well-rated left wing back in the Argentine system. And we saw Ryan, and I think he'll be on my chart when I scroll down, someone who had a lot of floor and was too cheap at the end of the season. So Barco is also only $4 million in FPL. So if you're an FPL player, he is a free square in that format.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be the most DFS relevant play. Solly March is back too, Ryan. That might make a big difference. He will be back eventually.
Solly March is coming back. Wow, I forgot about him. Yeah, Barco, though, assuming it's Barco on at least half the sets, his price will rise very fast, you would think. Yeah, we saw at the end of last year, he's just very attacking, good from open play, and if you give him corner kicks as a wing back, he's just going to be one of those guys that you're plugging in quite often. As far as their signings, they signed 3 young Africans. I don't know much about their new 17-year-old signing, but this Minta that they signed from, I think they signed him from Newcastle, but he was playing at Feyenoord last season. Really promising. Looks like a dangerous attacker, scores goals, only 20 years old. So I think we could see some. Yeah, I think we could see him emerge as one of their main players. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Evan Ferguson. I would assume that he's gonna, he struggled sort of towards the end of last season after like a ton of hype on him at the start, but
some fitness issues, right, Ryan?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. There were some fitness issues, and also he's young. I want to say he's still only 19 or 20. But big potential with Ferguson, and I would assume that they want him to be sort of their number 9 talisman type. But But yeah, Solly March coming back. There was a time when March was, sort of a DFS darling, at least for us. Could it be that way again? Yeah, maybe he takes half the sets with Gross gone. It'll be interesting to see who takes the other sets. Will it be Billy Gilmore? Solly March is left-footed, and so is Barco. So Billy Gilmore, it might be time to learn Billy Gilmore for a little while. It might be pretty cheap at the start. Probably not much of an open play floor there, but half the corners for an attacking team like Brighton, who should be on top for half of their games. Might be something to consider. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, did they have one? Oh yeah, a couple more signings. It's Ibrahim Osman, I didn't know much about, and then Mats Wiefer, I think, is going to be in the center of the park. Notable nose for goal on Mr. Wiefer, if that's how you say his name. But yeah, some good performances last year. He got into the national team. Looks like a pretty good
midfielder.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe he even brings stuff that Pascal Gross doesn't. So pretty good replacement there. You would think, Brighton have the players where they should be pretty good. I mean, a lot of talented players there, $20 million players, $30 million players. So like they should start to play pretty well once they get used to not having Gross.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the wingers are really good. We have March. We have Adingra, who looked really good. One of these young signings will break through. Brighton have really good recruitment policy. And Karu Mitoma was also really excellent last year, especially when he was fit. I mean, Ryan, I remember playing like Solly March at like 11,000 in cash games. And like
we did.
And like,
yeah,
it was like just me and you mostly, but we thought we were correct. And he also soft spot in my heart. My one king of the pitch ticket was a Solly March. I think he cost like 5,600. So talk about being ahead of the curve. Yeah, I think talking through this, Ryan, I'm more optimistic about the talent with Mats Wiefer back. I think that they can have like a decent, midfield. Maybe, Wiefer is not going to be the type of player Gross has, but maybe a Tropical Bear is right. And he does have a nose for goal and steps up. We will soon see on that bit. But yeah, optimistic overall. So Ryan, any final takeaways on Brighton and Hove Albion?
Yeah, I mean, I skipped right over João Pedro. I mean,
oh my goodness, the hipster floor.
Yeah, the hipster floor, right? He might have that again. You would expect Pedro's going to be on penalties. Made almost all of them last season. We saw these crazy games where he had like a 15-point floor somehow with no set pieces. And yeah, he's probably the guy I would assume that they want to build that attack around.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I meant to mention Mitoma. We saw for a couple months last season, he was like one of the best players in the league and linked with some of the biggest clubs in the world, and rightfully so. So, I mean, if he was unplayable for a time. So, yeah, they got a lot of talent there. If they could find some form, you could see them scoring a lot of goals again. It'll probably be up and down, just like it was last year. They had real trouble scoring towards the end of last season. I kind of think it'll be like that again with a new manager and just with the changes. So yeah, I think up and down performances, some really good ones, some letdowns. That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think João Pedro played way too many minutes for his 10-point open point for it to be a fluke, but very few players reach that threshold, Ryan, and to do it, I think it's something that we should be impressed. Like most of the players that we see reach that are usually like 60-minute players, and Pedro was regularly, playing a full assortment of minutes. So I think he's definitely going to remain one of the best options. You can even play him in cash games, and I think that's correct. He kind of just breaks some of the heuristics that we have.
Yeah, I agree.
And then one more thing. I noticed that Jean-Paul Van Heck had like a 5-point floor when I went through this. So I know Ryan yelled at me for playing some of these Brighton center backs, but I think it worked out okay if they were targeted on set pieces. And when a team dominates the ball so much, I think you can eke out some extra floor from center backs, even if it's a heuristically awkward play, as long as they're below 4K.
Man,
that's one thing worth pointing out.
Really like Brighton's roster, actually. Didn't even mention the 3 young players in Ciso, who we've seen, just saw score that sick goal in the Olympics a few days ago. He's got big potential. Hinchelwood, we saw have some great games. Looks like a real Premier League player. Bonanote, he scored a beautiful goal. I believe Copa America must have been. but just young guys that are getting better to go with some of the new talent they signed. Wow, they have a lot of talent there and a lot of attacking talent.
Yeah, should be plenty for the new manager, who I already forgot his name, to work with. But yeah, I think it'll be a fun spot. I'm going to be optimistic. I think I'll target Brighton heavily and hope they just get with it quickly. But there is the downside you mentioned. Let's get into our next team, Ryan. It's our first promoted team we're going to preview, so it's going to be a little bit different, and a promoted team with a managerial change. So Chelsea actually poached their manager, so maybe some of the Leicester talk will carry over to how we expect Chelsea to play, who we'll talk about next. But the manager I hate most, Steve Cooper, like the ultimate vibes manager, and he just lies to the media constantly, and everyone's changing roles. He's in Leicester, so that will be fun. But they were really good in the championship, Ryan. They weren't particularly lucky. They scored a lot of goals. They had a good defense. They were first place overall. I think one of the difficult things is that Chelsea bought Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, so they're going to lose kind of one of their main metronomes in the midfield. But some of their attacking players are pretty good, Ryan. So you have Abdul Fatawu, who I played sometimes in EFL slates, and you also had Mavididi. I don't know. How do you see this playing for Leicester City? I don't think Steve Cooper is a particularly good manager, but sometimes, I don't know, maybe they can find some decent form. I think the wingers should be pretty good DFS plays. I don't know. Do you know more about Leicester? You usually have better championship knowledge than me.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I think Dewsbury-Hall is a huge loss. I think he was their best player. Maresca signed him to Chelsea for a reason. I think Maresca is also a big loss. I mean, he was only at Leicester for like a season and became one of the most coveted managers in the world. So I think that's two big losses for them. They are the favorite to get relegated at minus 250. I just looked up the relegation odds, so it tells you how people feel about them. And then, like you said, I think they're going to rely on those two wingers. We'll see about set pieces, but I think the two wingers will split sets. Over the board with sets last year, but it was mostly Dewsbury-Hall for most of the season. But Mavididi and Fatawu took some sets. Fatawu looked pretty good at the end of last season. Scored a couple really nice goals. We had Leicester on some FA Cup slates, or maybe it was League Cup because they went deep and played against some of the big teams. But yeah, they don't have much. They don't have much at Leicester. So I think you're right. They'll rely on those wingers. Those wingers will probably be their best two DFS plays. But yeah, not much optimism really for me. I don't know. I agree that they're probably most likely to get relegated.
Not a lot to be optimistic about. I mean, like James Justin and Ricardo Pereira, we're pretty familiar with what they're capable in the midfield, in the Premier League. Tottenham legend Harry Winks will probably play some in the midfield. I mean, he's just a bang-on average player. I don't think Bobby D. Cordova-Reid, he's not a bad player, but that's not a player who's gonna save your season.
No, it is notable. They do have like quite a bit more Premier League experience, way more than Ipswich. And more than Southampton too. I mean, all those players: De Cordova-Reid, Winks, Pereira, Ndidi, Justin, Sumare, Feist, Vestergaard, Christensen. Actually, all of them. Daka.
They've been
all played in the Premier League.
Too.
Yeah, and they're all like, decent pedigree players. Maybe it's somewhat surprising that I see minus 250 for Leicester to be relegated, minus 138 for Ipswich, and then plus 137 for Southampton. So out of the relegated teams, I mean, apparently Leicester is the worst. I don't know if I would have necessarily thought that. Maybe I'd have guessed Ipswich, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see, Jack. Not much to get excited about with Leicester. They don't have much attacking wise. They'll really rely on those wingers and maybe Patson Daka.
I mean, Jamie Vardy is being projected to start right now, so that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's really bad. I mean,
legendary player for the club, but that's not like really serious.
Just like he's past it now.
Yeah, I don't even. Maybe he does play 1,500 minutes, but yeah. big yikes all around there. Yeah, Ryan, I wouldn't have expected them to be the biggest favorites. Truthfully, I would have expected that to be Ipswich, but we'll see if their experience makes a difference overall.
They have international defenders, which is interesting. Like Pereira used to
Vestergaard, yeah.
Feist
Yeah,
is
Feist.
they got Feist around like 30 million as we saw he's the best defender on Belgium. Say what you want about Vestergaard, but him and Christensen both play for the national team. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe their defense can be okay. I don't know. And Ndidi and Winks are decent holding midfielders. So I would think Leicester's path would be to try to not concede as much rather than try to outscore teams.
Yeah, maybe they can win on organization overall, like compared to other teams who won't have that experience and might not have that cohesion.
Right.
I don't know, Ryan. Steve Cooper, though, I think that might be everything you need to know. Not a good
maybe
manager.
maybe that helps push their odds to minus 250 to be relegated.
Maybe. We will see. Any final words on Leicester City, Ryan?
Nope.
Let's move on to Chelsea. Now, Chelsea were a team that they struggled very much at the start, and they were kind of getting unlucky. And Mauricio Pochettino was doing the loser manager thing, saying, well, our expected goals were actually pretty good. So that's when you know it's probably going to be over for a manager. But Pochettino teams have taken a while to kind of glob together, and Chelsea looked pretty good at the end of the season. I know the new manager that they have was very coveted and very good, and it was probably just a business decision to reach that ceiling, whereas maybe Pochettino doesn't quite have as high a ceiling as a manager because he's older. But man, I kind of think it was unfair, and Chelsea did look pretty good at the end of last season. So I don't know, Ryan, what do you think about this Chelsea squad? Always frustrating. They're getting some players back from injury. How do you think it's going to work out for them this season?
I'm just looking at their players. I'd be pretty optimistic, and if the manager is an upgrade at all, yeah, I'd be very optimistic. They have young star players who should only be getting better too, like almost all of them. Mudryk was kind of a disappointment, but I wouldn't write him off yet either. He will bring them something, and I think he's getting better. And Nkunku barely even played because of injury, so they have him there. Nico Jackson, he squandered a lot of chances last year. It was the butt of a lot of jokes, but he had some good games too, and he got into a lot of great positions. There could have been more than a few more goals for him. And then that midfield, like Enzo, they signed Enzo for like 120 million. He was good for Argentina in Copa. He up and down last season, but that should be a strength there. Bring in Dewsbury Hall. Got to assume Dewsbury Hall is just right into the starting lineup. I mean, the manager that he played for last year, he's really their only key addition. I think they paid like 35 million for him. It seems like Conor Gallagher will be gone, so that's just like a straight swap there. Like, will they play three mids? Are they going to play Caicedo? I don't know. Caicedo, Enzo, and Dewsbury Hall, or do they only play two of them? I guess I'm not sure. We'll see. Reece James might be back or will be back. Obviously, that's a plus. Top defender like Colwell. Like, they just have so many top players at Chelsea. Cucurella off of great Euros. Like, they should be good. If the manager can bring any kind of upgrade, I think like almost all their players should get better. Even Cole Palmer. So yeah, I'm optimistic for Chelsea. Let me see. What are their odds? I don't have the odds up, but yeah, like I could see Chelsea finishing third. And
they could. You're making a big bull case for them right now.
Yeah, there's so much talent there. I mean, they spent just an outrageous amount of money. So like, how can they not be, you just need a decent manager for those players, which they had in Poach, but maybe it wasn't quite working. They did look better at the end of the season, like you said, but I just think there's so much room for upside with all their young talent. All those guys should be better than they were last year.
Well, Ryan, I'm going to ask the golden question with Chelsea. I'm kind of excited about them with the talents. I don't know. I hate Chelsea as a Tottenham fan, but there are some pretty fun players on this team. I sorted the projections Adam made by crosses, and the ultimate Chelsea question is, what on God's green earth is their set piece situation going to be like? We could see James, we could see Palmer, we could see Chilwell, we could see Nkunku, we could see Mudryk. It's probably going to be a nightmare all season, but how do you give your best guess? And we know it's Chelsea, so we won't hold you to it.
And it could be a guy you didn't even mention. It could be Dewsbury Hall.
Could be, yeah.
Who took all the sets for Leicester last year, basically. That will be frustrating. We'll try to check what's happening in the preseason. But yeah, right now, I don't know. We'll look at the preseason. I don't know. Maybe with a new manager, it gets better. I know he said Cole Palmer's on penalties. Not like that was really a question. But yeah, guys like Reece James and Chilwell really depend on sets sometimes. So that will be important. I think, yeah, all we can do is check the recent friendlies leading up to the season.
Yeah, I think I agree overall with you. I mean, do you think Reece James can stay healthy? I don't really believe in injury-prone players that much. But
he's an injury-prone player. He's an injury-prone player. It's not his fault. It's just the way his body is. He's got a lot of muscle. The way he's built, probably always going to run into that type of stuff, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe not. But when he's in there, I guess it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter for DFS. But yeah, you could see Reece James being in and out of there. Maybe they take it easy with him.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I mean, I don't really have much more to add. Do you have any final words on Chelsea?
No, I don't. It's sort of a wait and see. Wait and see on their starting lineup, how they're going to play with this new manager. Will they play similar to how Leicester did last season? I would assume so, but they got a ton of talent. So, yeah, I would be excited if I was a Chelsea fan.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Me too. Maybe Cole Palmer won't get so lucky on the penalties. I still feel like he ran a little good in the department, Ryan, but undoubtedly a pretty elite DFS commodity.
Yep.
All right, Ryan, let's go to our last team for this video, a team who had a really good finish to the season. I feel like they might have even been top 4 to finish the season. It's Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace. So Palace were pretty much struggling, and I think they had some injury issues, like Eza and Olise were both out, often overlapping for longer periods of time. So Glasner came in February. He kind of installed this 3-4-3 look, and Palace looked really good. They played like one of the best teams in the Premier League. Adam Wharton slotted into the midfield and made a difference. Mitchell and Munoz looked good as wingbacks. And you had Mateta start to find some decent goal-scoring form as well, I think, towards the end of last season. Yeah, 16 goals overall, so that's better than some goal-scoring form. Ryan, I think, I'd be very, very bullish on Crystal Palace this year, if not for the loss of Michael Olise to Bayern Munich. And then, of course, Eberechi Eza, he is also being rumored to be on just about every single top 6 team in the Premier League these days. Probably a couple teams in Spain and Germany, too. It's probably 50-50 if he's going to be on the squad. It's going to be the outlook on Palace is going to be very dependent on Eza because he's a key player. But, Ryan, let's just assume that he does stay for Palace. How do you think that things are going to look for them overall?
Well, yeah, it really hinges on whether or not he stays. I mean, not everything, but he's such an important player and would be the focal point for almost everything. Really good to end last season. Good for England. Still young. They really need him. And the manager, Glasner, yeah, he did a great job. I mean, so even without Eze, I think Palace will be fine. But obviously losing Olise to Bayern Munich is already a big loss. They signed Ismaila Sarr too, right? Oh, yeah. So that's the replacement for one of them. I think he would probably just slot in the same spot as Olise. That's where we saw him play for Watford. He had a tough time at Marseille last season, Sarr, but when he was on Watford a couple years ago, I mean, clearly was a guy that can succeed in the Premier League and was Watford's most dangerous player and was always, about to move to a bigger club. So I think that's a pretty good signing. I think Glasner can get something out of him. Mateta really came good. I think he's a good center forward to have in the Premier League. I think he'll be pretty good again. He's starting for France right now in the Olympics with Olise. They've both looked good there. Wharton, really promising young player. I mean, so good that he got called up to England for the Euros. So I think it's a big plus to have Wharton there. Again, like a lot of their fortune is going to hang on Eze, but I think the manager has shown that he's good enough where Palace are going to be competitive. They're going to stay up no matter what. They bring in Kamada. I'm not, I was a fan of Kamada years ago. Not saying I'm not anymore, but like he's older now, and I think he was in and out of the Frankfurt side the last couple of years. So those are tough losses, man. I mean, you like as a, I don't know. You can't really say anything more than like if Eze stays or not is just going to be such a big difference. I mean, if he's there, he's taking pens, he's taking half the sets. Wharton probably takes half the sets, which will be good to know. He could be a pretty good DFS player. I mean, you think he's a guy that should be playing 90 minutes and also will be taking corners. Might see his price tag rise from where it starts. But yeah, really, I guess I just like Palace because their manager. Oh, they might lose Gahey too. They might lose Gahey. I could really see them losing Gahey. Gahey's stock rose quite a bit after the Euros. He's going to end up on a bigger club. Might even happen, in August. So they might lose their best two players still, but still think they'll be good enough to compete and stay up for sure. But yeah, it's tough to talk about without knowing if Eze is going to be there.
Yeah, maybe one last thing. I think you really covered everything quite well. Sarr and Kamada, the new guys, and hopefully, if Eze leaves, that'll be the new creative forces, and it's tough to replace. But the wingbacks played pretty well in the new system, and so it's tough for the global statistics to reflect that. But Tyrick Mitchell and Daniel Munoz, were priced about 4,700 in Classic, and I think were pretty good plays. So, do you think there's any fluke to that? I mean, I think Munoz especially is an attacking player, and Tyrick Mitchell is he's a good player, underrated, maybe even should have gotten called up to England as a left back instead of Shaw. But I'll save my pontificating for that. Do you think that these players should still be good attacking options for us, the players we want to target in Classic and Showdown?
Yeah, in general, yeah. Price dependent, obviously, but yeah, I think that's how Glasner is going to play. Those wing backs are used in the attack. Were they helped? Was Munoz helped at all by by playing right next to Olise? Probably, but I think Mitchell had I could be wrong, but I thought Mitchell had a higher floor, like just in general, and then with Munoz, you're kind of relying on a goal contribution more, or a shot on goal, that type of stuff. Whereas with Mitchell, you'll get some defensive stats and some crosses. Big fan of Mitchell. I think he definitely could have played for England, maybe even over Trippier on the left.
Yeah, I mean, especially as like a natural left back, and like they were going to play defensive anyway. So it didn't really make any sense to me. Mitchell's always been a pretty solid player. It's not like he's outstanding, but I mean, he replaced Wan-Bissaka back in the day and has always been a competent Premier League defender.
Yep.
To your comments about floor, Mitchell played more in the old ways and had the same floor over the whole season as Munoz. So that called you Adam Ryan will probably reflect that Mitchell had a slightly better floor than Munoz overall. But I mean, I saw Munoz score in the Copa America. I think he even scored a goal. So he definitely has that in his back pocket.
Yeah. You think he's the one more likely to score or assist out of the two?
Yeah. Well, that doesn't stop Mitchell from assisting when I don't play him in Showdown. but I will not be salty about that. 2024 is going to be a new season. Ryan, we are 10 teams deep, so we are going to pause it for now. And please join us in our next 2 videos where we break down the rest of the teams. So we will see you in future videos. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.